dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Welcome to Liberty Nation Radio. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's edition, we are talking the myth of the international world order, Donald Trump's Board of Peace, and a whole lot more. Remember, Liberty Nation Radio is sponsored by LibertyNation.com. You can access podcasts, breaking news analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. And you're here on Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. Very fortunate to have with us this week Liberty Nation's national security correspondent, Mr. Dave Patterson, to talk about all the happenings that are both geopolitical and otherwise. And Dave, I've got to say, it's this last couple of weeks have really been in your wheelhouse, haven't they?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. And yeah, they have been. I mean, it's a lot going on in geopolitics.
So I think the main thing that I want to get into today, Dave, is it's really the aftermath of Davos. Now Davos we covered on the page of Liberty Nation quite a lot last week, but it's really the aftermath where I think people are not the public at large, because generally the public at large are not big fans of supranational organizations unless they benefit directly from them. But the big players, or supposedly big players in these organizations, like the WEF, NATO, the UN, and
International Monetary Fund, and so forth.
Oh yeah, exactly, those guys. But it seems to me that the idea that they're all aghast at this idea that Donald Trump is pushing against the international rules or the international norms. And it's like they've just woken up to discover that they don't really mean anything.
Well, you don't know exactly what's in Donald Trump's mind at any one point, but
sure.
It seems to me that you think you have a globalization, you have a global order here that you elites sit here in Davos and chat about and pat each other on the back. Well, let me offer an alternative. And I think that the Peace Board and things like that are his idea of an alternative that is more cordial to the way he thinks and more cordial to America first.
Yeah. So there's I think it was Gramsci who said when the old world dies and a new one's born, if it's not ready yet, what you find in the middle are monsters. And I think because clearly many of the globalists are big fans of Gramsci, naturally, this is kind of what they're worrying about. Because let's talk specifically about the international rules-based order. And I know you do have a fair bit of expertise in this topic, Dave. But to me, it seems that you've had this. What would you call it? You've had this idea where everybody follows the same rules in the world, and people get condemned for not following the same rules, for not singing off the same hymn sheet. But all that was made possible, and this is just my opinion on this, all that was made possible only because all of these countries that say they believe in this international rules-based order is only possible because you had the U.S. with an enormously big stick standing behind, making sure that everybody stayed in their place. And if the United States weren't there, then we would have seen a lot more chaos.
I think that's true. I mean, immediately after World War II, the United States emerged as, the superpower, and the nuclear weapons notwithstanding, the impact, the gravitas of the United States, moved things around the world. And so there was, I think, a mythology that grew up around this idea of common shared values, and that democracy will prevail if we just give it enough time, and encourage democratic nations to throw away their the way they've been doing things and choose something new. And I think that it has proven not to be the case. The United States has a view, obviously, of the world in which its opinion matters. And I think that its opinion then constitutes what, we believe as in the United States as the rules-based order. And and again, it goes back to this idea of common shared values,
Mm.
which I don't think is true.
I would agree. I would agree. I mean, you're in this position where the world is in this position now where when Donald Trump left office in 2021, the whole of the whole of the European order, the people in the EU, leaders of European nations, they all said, that they all made some statements along the lines, adults are back in charge. Here comes Joe Biden. Then they saw what a disaster that was. But they still spent 4 years or 3 years, I guess, running Donald Trump's view of the world into the ground. And now that he's back, to everybody's surprise, who on the European side, um, they're left with a bit of a reckoning where Donald Trump, I guess he doesn't feel the need to play nice because he knows that their masks dropped when he left office in 2021, and they called him all sorts of names, and they stopped with the civility that really underpins what their idea of a rules-based order is or international order is. They stopped with the civility. And so he thought, well, it's all a mask for them. And so he's come back in. He thought, why should I carry on with this facade of, we've all got this equal stake in the world, and therefore we should all be consulted equally on what's happening, when really there's only there are 9 nuclear power countries as far as we know. Only 3 or 4 of those are serious players in the world on this. But the power accrues in these single individual pots, and everybody else is doing what? That they're relying on these single individual pots for their protection, whilst lambasting the people who own those pots.
Yeah, I think that, in maybe oversimplification, but
Sure.
you have you have the major powers, you have economic powers as well, which aren't necessarily the nuclear powers. I mean,
Sure.
and so what they want to have happen is they want the rest of the world to sit back and say, "Tell me what you want me to do."
Mm.
And of course they're happy to do that. I mean, that increases their globalized power, and they are revered for their wise counsel. And that's what they want. I mean, that's what the globalists want. They want a single view of how man should exist on this earth, and more importantly, they want to determine what that is.
Yeah.
And I think that what Donald Trump does, he says, not so fast. There's another view here, and it's mine, and it matters. And I thought it I was actually surprised
Mm.
at Davos when President Trump came on the stage. He got a standing ovation. I mean,
Yeah.
that caught me by surprise. I thought that they would be cordial, that they would be quiet, but they were not. And that
Mm.
and he didn't hold any punches back.
No. Well, there's a bit of a battle of the narratives going around about, and I know this isn't a thing, but who won Davos? And Donald Trump was one contender. The other contender, according to certain segments of the left-leaning media, the other contender for who won Davos would be Canada's Mark Carney. And I have I've got a couple of quotes just from his speech. It was, "We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition." And he said, "If you are not at the table, you are on the menu." Now, he's not wrong, right?
No, I think that there's a certain validity to what he says. But at the same time, you could get to be at the table as long as you're kind of an honest broker and willing to accommodate to the kinds of things that are going on. If you're a small power and you want to be unconstructive in terms of what else is going on, you're going to look like the menu.
Yeah, very true.
And I think that Canada might have stepped in that role with their much publicized agreements with China.
We're actually going to talk about where these mid to small countries are heading after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.